Functions. Let's talk about JavaScript functions. So one of the main constructs in JavaScript is the functions, which you define using the word function. I'm going to call this one double x. So that's going to just return 2 times x, like that. And then when I say double 4, it's going to return 8. Double 11 is going to return 22, and double that is going to return a number because I cannot multiply a number times a string, right? But you see, I declared a function called double. So if I type in double, it's going to return the function to me, right? So I can do the old factorial of n if n is less than or equal to 0, return 1, else return factorial of n minus 1 n times n minus 1, the factorial of n minus 1, and I think that's it, right? So factorial of 10 is that over 100. You know, we start to get into scientific notation. So there you go. So that's a function. Now, a couple things to know about. The main thing to know about functions has to do with the scope. So I'm going to go back over here to Eclipse. So this is the script file that I'm loading in that page. Right now, there's nothing there. So I'm going to declare a function. I call it just test x. And what this function is going to do is it's going to set the variable a to ran test. Right. So the main thing to be careful with functions is about scoping issues. So let's say over here I set a to be 11, and then I have my test function that sets a to ran test. The question is, when I load up that script, which I just did, what is a going to be? Well, a is still 11 because I have not run the function, right? Now let's say I do run the function test, and I'm going to give it no argument. This is a fun thing about JavaScript. It'll run. Doesn't matter if I don't give it the right number of arguments, JavaScript will not crash, unlike Java and C++. So it just ignores that, and basically what it's going to do is going to set x to undefined. But then the question remains, why is a now? Well, now a is ran test, right? Because after running test, which I did without a problem, and the first thing it did is set a equals ran test and to that string, and so now a has changed. So let's say, so that's a problem. So what you want to do is, if you want the variable, this variable a to be different from this variable a, that's what you do. You use the bar keyword, and some used that before. So now you know what it means. You're going to use that to say that this variable a is local to the test function. So when I reload this, a is 11. I run test, now a is still 11, right? Because it only changed that one within here. And similarly, you know, if this one here, the parameter value, also has an implicit var in it, right? So I can now reload that, and I could call test with something, and now a is still 11 because, you know, the parameters get an implicit var. So like I said, you know, test will work with any number of arguments. Let me just get this guy to return something. So I'm going to return 8, whatever you pass it. So reload. So test with 1 returns run test. Wasn't expected. So I'm going to get rid of that. So it's just going to return whatever I pass it. I reload it. So test the 1 should now return 1. So check this out. I'm going to give it a bunch of other numbers, and it's still going to return 1. and nothing's going to go wrong. And if I don't give it any, it's going to return undefined. So that's what I mean. It doesn't matter how many arguments you give it and how many arguments are defined. It's just going to set those onto undefined. This will cause you troubles if you're expecting differently, which you probably are if you're used to Java. So that's a function, and within here now you can put your whole code. And there's another way. Now the one thing to note is that you can do this another way. You can say, I'm going to call that help function. Function of no arguments, and console log no help here. So this is another way of defining a function. So I'm just going to say help get the function, and this is the function. It just prints out no help here. I reload that, and there's help, which is the function, and I can invoke that function help like that, and it runs. It says no help here. Pretty cool, right? So then I can set f equals help, right? And now f runs no help here, right? So a function in JavaScript is a first-class element, right? It's a value that you can pass around and assign it to variables, just like you would a number, right? So once I have the function, I can set some other variable to that function. Then I know when I want to call it, I can call it. And so this means I can pass that to test. So I can say test help. And all I'm doing is passing the function as an argument to the test function. And of course, you remember that only returns that function. So it's going to return that function back to me like so. So this is very powerful, right? The fact that functions, you can pass around functions like this is something you're going to be using a lot. Right? We're going to be declaring functions. So understand this notation here, function, and you can of course put arguments here if your function takes 2 arguments. You can put it in there and assign them to variables.